Chapter 628 to 630 Root Base. In the dimly lit room of the root base, Shimura Danzo, wearing the Hokage hat and Hokage robe, sat on the main seat of the round table with a smug smile plastered on his face. From the expression on his face, it can be seen that Danzo seems to have developed a superiority complex these days. On the other side of the round table sat Orochimaru with a laid-back expression, and lastly, Uchiha Tsuki wearing her Homusubi disguise of the Amatsukami organization, an unidentifiable expression on her face that was covered by her Homusubi mask. This is the first official meeting held by the three parties since Shimura Danzo became the temporary Hokage agent of Konoha. At this time, Danzo coldly looked at Orochimaru and questioned in a majestic tone, "Orochimaru, something's wrong with the Jinchuriki of Kubi. What did you do to him?" Although Danzo didn't attend yesterday's grand entrance ceremony in person, his eyes and ears were still present at that ceremony, so everything that happened there was within Danzo's surveillance. Unlike most of the other people who were present at the grand entrance ceremony, Danzo's suspicions didn't allow him to take Naruto's claim of having mastered Senjutsu mode as a joke. Although he doesn't know how Naruto can learn such a difficult jutsu at such a young age, he still chose to trust his instincts and felt it might be possible, and if it is, then it must have something to do with Orochimaru. Therefore, he questioned the snake sitting in front of him today. Uchiha Tsuki, wearing her Homusubi mask, also looked at Orochimaru, but she was not really interested in Orochimaru's answer, as she is fully aware of the process through which Naruto mastered the Senjutsu mode. After all, Ichi Kashima, the one who taught Naruto, has personally told Kuroto about it. Moreover, Kuroto even questioned Hinata about her entire experience after she and Naruto were abducted by Orochimaru. Hinata has always had a close relationship with Yui, and because Kuroto and Yui are lovers, Hinata is also quite familiar with Kuroto. When questioned by Kuroto, Hinata started to tell her experience and told almost everything to Kuroto that happened to the two of them. What happened after they were abducted, how they were treated, and many other things, except their short little adventure at the Ryaki cave. The little girl was hesitating to reveal Naruto's secrets. But how can such an innocent little girl stand in front of Kuroto when Kuroto mentioned Ryaki cave in front of her? She was surprised as well as guilty and told everything that happened to the two of them and Kabuto at the Ryaki cave. After he understood the ins and outs of the incident that led Naruto to the Ryaki cave, Kuroto couldn't help but sigh. His mood was quite complete at that time. To be honest, Kuroto isn't all that surprised that Naruto can master the Senjutsu mode, but what really makes him unbelievable is the time and place where he mastered the Senjutsu mode. In the canon, Naruto came into contact with Senjutsu after Jiraiya's death and mastered it by the time Pain attacked Konoha. At that time, Naruto was somewhere between 16 or 17 years old, and the Senjutsu mode he mastered was that of the Mount Mayaboku, which is not the case here. Here he came into contact with Senjutsu at a much younger age. And even if it's said that he hasn't completely mastered it yet, it is still too early to come in contact with. What's more, the Senjutsu mode he came into contact with is of the Ryaki cave. These changes show that the world Kuroto is living in can no longer be called the shinobi world of Naruto. Instead, it is a completely different shinobi world. These changes in the shinobi world have happened because of the butterfly effect, and the changes are getting more and more serious as the flaps of wings of the butterfly effect are increasing and time is proceeding. This means Kuroto can no longer limit his thinking and judgment on the canon, because if he does, it is definitely going to bite him in the back. Although Kuroto has always understood this, however, the more he faces this reality, the more vigilant he has to become. The reason is that the world is becoming more and more unpredictable. As Tsuki sighed, Orochimaru felt Danzo's gaze and answered casually, "It was just a small accident." "A small accident, you say?" muttered Danzo with a frown, and stared at Orochimaru with a questioning gaze. Waiting for him to explain everything related to the so-called accident in detail, Orochimaru glanced at Danzo with a thoughtful expression. There is no doubt that ever since he was appointed as the temporary Hokage agent of Konoha, Danzo's political power has increased a lot, and along with the increase in political power, Danzo's self-confidence and oppression have also increased, so much so that even Orochimaru can't completely remain indifferent when exposed to it. Of course, if Orochimaru really wants, then Danzo can't get anything out of him. But considering his next plans, Orochimaru weighed his options and decided to reveal a half-truth with a shrugging expression. "The members of the Akatsuki organization were able to track down my base where the two children were kept, in order to avoid the probability of the Jinchuriki of Kubi falling into the hands of Akatsuki. My subordinate took Naruto to one of the unexplored sage regions, and something probably happened there." One of the unexplored sage regions. Danzo squinted slightly, and after scrutinizing Orochimaru's words, he asked, "Does that mean Naruto really mastered Senjutsu mode?" All the previous questions were asked to clear this doubt. From this whole fiasco, Danzo only cares about three things. First, has Naruto really mastered Senjutsu? Second, can Danzo control the Jinchuriki of Kubi after he has mastered Senjutsu mode? And third, can Danzo himself learn Senjutsu mode from Naruto or from that unexplored sage region? Faced with Danzo's questions, this time Orochimaru did not give an answer. Instead, the snake looked at the old guy with a mocking smile. Boom! Being mocked by Orochimaru, Danzo suddenly banged the table and spoke in anger. Orochimaru, answer my damn question. Suki sighed and said, Shimura, Danzo, please try to think about it yourself. Had the Jinchuriki of Kubi really mastered Senjutsu, he wouldn't have lost so badly against Uchiha and made a fool of himself in front of the entire village. Orochimaru squinted slightly, and while looking at Suki with a meaningful gaze, he carried on the conversation. Indeed, if Senjutsu was so easy to learn and master, Jiraiya and Uchiha Shisui wouldn't be the only ones to have mastered it from the 5 great villages. What's more, even after the 2 of them have mastered the Senjutsu mode, they are unable to use it without the help of their summon toads and if shinobis as strong as them can't use Senjutsu without the help of their summons, how do you expect a kid who can't even control his chakra to be able to master Senjutsu? Some secret information is now well known among the senior staff of the Konoha village, and the fact that Jiraiya needs to summon the 2 great toad sages every time he uses Senjutsu mode is one of them. Moreover, Shisui also explained that he needs to summon Fuufu if he wants to use Senjutsu mode, so Danzo couldn't, to find flaws in Orochimaru's words. In fact, deep down, Danzo didn't really believe that a kid as young as Naruto can master Senjutsu, but his character that likes to control everything made him want to confirm it, because he couldn't risk the Jinchuriki of Kubi getting out of his hands. He coldly stared at Hamusubi and Orochimaru and said, "You better not be trying to play around or deceive me." Seeing that Danzo's suspicions were temporarily dispelled, Hamusubi and Orochimaru glanced at each other silently and then withdrew their gazes. Regardless of what happened to Naruto and the fact that Naruto has indeed mastered Senjutsu mode, Suki didn't want Danzo to get distracted by other things at this time. What Suki wants from Danzo is to remain obedient and act as a perfect guinea pig for her. And since cooperation with Orochimaru is a necessity, she decided to interfere and help Orochimaru. However, judging from Danzo's current attitude towards the 2 of them, it can be seen that the short success of removing Tsurutobi Kirusen from the position of Konoha's Hokage and getting some temporary power in his hand has made him forget that he is nothing more than a guinea pig and a pawn, and he is trying to jump around more than what his feet can handle. As Suki was thinking of what to do to Danzo, the person in question again looked at Orochimaru and said, "Orochimaru, you must have heard of the recent dispute that happened between the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan, if I didn't guess incorrectly. Hyuga Kuroto is also your spy in Konoha, right?" As soon as Danzo mentioned Hyuga Kuroto, Orochimaru's expression became sullen. He didn't like where this was going. Even Suki's expression became gloomy. If it weren't for the Hamusubi mask covering her face, both Orochimaru and Danzo would have noticed her ice-cold expression. But the 2 didn't notice, and Danzo continued. Hyuga Kuroto single-handedly defeated 8 Jonins of the Konoha military police force. The strength of that kid has exceeded my expectation, and he also seems to be highly trusted by Tsurutobi. I really didn't expect that before you left the village. You sowed such a weed in Konoha. Orochimaru was confused and asked, "What are you trying to say?" Danzo ordered Orochimaru in a commanding tone. "Konoha only belongs to me, and I will never allow a spy to sit in such a critical position as the principal of the Ninja Academy. It would be better if you ask your spy to resign from it. Otherwise," Suki's face got more and more murderous as Danzo spoke each word. Honestly, she doesn't care about the position of the principal of the Ninja Academy all that much, but she didn't like Danzo's attitude. Obviously, he is just the temporary Hokage agent, even though his position is not finalized. At this time, rather than trying to win over allies and consolidate his unstable position, he is trying to show off his power to people who don't even come under him. Suki doesn't like such behavior, and she felt highly repulsive towards it. Now she has decided, even if the world falls apart, Hyuga Kuroto wouldn't quit that position while Danzo is in power. Perhaps Orochimaru was the same, and after taking a deep breath he shook his head with a chuckle and said, "I suppose it would be better for you to directly try your so-called otherwise, because if you expect that I can order Kuroto-kun to resign from that position, then you are sorely mistaken. It's been quite a lot of years since the 2 of us had any form of contact, and I no longer have the ability to order him. I have long lost any form of control over him. Orochimaru, I am not negotiating here. This is an order." Danzo put his hand over the Hokage hat and said in an unquestionable tone, "I am giving you a month at most. I don't care what method you use to convince him. I want Hyuga Kuroto's resignation letter on my table by the end of this month." "Orochimaru, I am not negotiating here. This is an order," said Danzo in an ordering tone. As soon as these words came out of Danzo's mouth, both Orochimaru and Uchiha-tuki's faces became gloomier. The way Danzo is behaving in front of them, it is as if he has completely substituted himself as the current Hokage of Konoha. His tone of ordering Orochimaru is that of a superior ordering his subordinate, when Orochimaru is not his subordinate at all. Orochimaru and Danzo are in a cooperative relationship, hence their status is equal, but Danzo seems to have forgotten this phase. and he even dared to sweep his gaze at Hamusubi with a provocatively. Although both Hamusubi and Orochimaru had expected that, after becoming the temporary Hokage agent and getting the political power of Konoha village in his hands, Danzo will inevitably swell. Neither of the two expected this guy to become so rampant. Such behavior is simply unreasonable. Moreover, Danzo didn't care about Orochimaru and Hamusubi's reaction, and dared to declare, "I am Hokage now. You should understand what this identity means." At this moment, Danzo's mindset seems to have changed completely, and he seems to believe that, now, I am the center of the world, and everything must revolve around me, which is obviously not the case. Looking at Danzo's disgusting face, Suki thought in annoyance. It seems that using him for too long would be impossible because his ambitions have started to swell. I must speed up things, else dealing with him will start to get more and more troublesome, because there is no telling what moves he might make now that he has become the Hokage agent of Konoha village. Suki could feel that ever since Danzo became the temporary Hokage agent and saw the possibility of his rise. He has started to get out of control, and so, the only option she has is to speed up things. When Suki was considering her next set of plans, Orochimaru suddenly raised his eyes, and without showing any weakness while facing Danzo, he shook his head with a chuckle and said, "Shimura Danzo, you seem to have forgotten that I am Konoha's Ronin, have been for a very long time. So, your Hokage's identity. Oh, I am sorry, that was my mistake. Your identity of temporary Hokage agent cannot control me, and your orders are useless on me. If you want Hyuga Kuroto's resignation, go ahead, and ask him yourself." Danzo stood up abruptly, and while releasing killing intent towards Orochimaru, he shouted in anger. Orochimaru was not perturbed by Danzo's killing intent or anger-filled shout. He was still sitting on his seat, and while casually looking at Danzo, he licked his lips and asked with a smirk, "So, now you want to kill me? It's understandable. I don't blame you. Go ahead and try your best. But the question is, can you do it? Are you capable enough? Not to mention without alerting anyone in Konoha. After all, it would be very troubling for the temporary Hokage agent if anyone were to find me and Hamusubi in your base. Right, Hamusubi-san?" Suki was speechless. She didn't particularly want to get involved in this fiasco. However, now that Orochimaru has thrown the dice towards her, she had no choice but to speak something, and she could only warn Danzo as a member of Amatsukami Shimura. "Danzo, I know that defeating the former Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, who has been suppressing you for decades, has given you some inexplicable self-confidence, but I want to tell you that this self-confidence is of no use in front of the two of us. I also want to remind you that the ones sitting here are neither your enemies nor your friends, and neither are we your subordinates, nor are we your superiors. We are working here based on a cooperative relationship. So, your orders in the name of Hokage are useless here. Moreover, the name and identity of Hokage has never meant anything in my eyes. Not to mention, you have neither been appointed as the Hokage at this time, nor do you have any qualities or strength to match a Hokage as of yet." Danzo glared at Hamusubi. He really wanted to teach her a lesson, but upon remembering the identity of the other party as a member of Amatsukami and the unfathomable strength that she and her organization seems to have, he could only force himself to restrain. Of course, he didn't forget to swear to himself in his mind, whether it is the Amatsukami organization, the Akatsuki organization, or Orochimaru's Otogakuwa. "Wait until I complete the ritual. After that, I will destroy each of you one by one like stepping on lowly bugs." And then sat back with gloomy aura enveloping his body. Ignoring the cold killing intent on Danzo's body, Suki said, "Let's get back to the topic. Has the task of capturing the candidates with selected Keki Genkai completed?" Danzo replied with a humph. "How can such a simple task be difficult for me?" Suki nodded slightly and said, "Since all the targets are captured, so all the preliminary preparations for the ritual are completed, and now we can move to the next step. And that is to choose the location where you want to perform the ritual." Considering that this matter is extremely important to him, Danzo put away the gloomy aura and killing intent and asked, "Do you have any suggestions?" Suki ignored Danzo's behavior and directly said, without playing around, "Since the Keki Genkai selected by having a higher concentration of water chakra nature, so we have to choose a location that can balance the excessive water chakra nature, and we don't have many such locations as option. Either the location can be inside an active volcano, or in the middle of a scorching desert. If you choose an active volcano, it would have a maximum balancing effect on excessive water chakra nature. But make note that if you do choose an active volcano, then you wouldn't be able to draw energy from a planetary phenomenon as Hiruko did. Of course, you can also choose desert, and as long as the altitude of the sand dunes is high enough, you will be able to draw energy from the planetary phenomenon. However, the balancing effect on the excessive water chakra nature would decrease." Danzo nodded and asked again, "And which is safer and has higher chances of success?" "Inside an active volcano," answered Suki, and then explained, "For the successive ritual, balancing of all chakra natures is more important, so I'd suggest performing the ritual inside an active volcano. Personally, I would suggest that you perform the ritual inside an active volcano because the balancing effect is more important. Orochimaru also added Haruko used the planetary phenomenon to supply chakra because he lacked resources that would supply him chakra. Now that you are Hokage, this problem can be solved quite easily. Orochimaru was talking about the chakra transmission technology. Chakra transmission technology is not too high-end for one of the 5 great shinobi villages, and is used quite often in many things. One of the examples would be the chakra cannon of Kumogakure. That chakra cannon draws chakra from a group of shinobi. If Danzo also deploys the chakra transmission technology for his ritual, then the problem of insufficient chakra can be solved quite easily and he will get a continuous chakra supply. Danzo nodded slightly and took out a map of the shinobi continent. All the active volcanoes that can be used for the ritual have been marked on the map with a red pen. This shows that Danzo has already considered this far and has been searching and screening out the locations for his ritual accordingly. Pointing at one of the active volcanoes marked on the map, Danzo said, I have personally surveyed this volcano. Everything is up to standards. Moreover, this volcano is in the land of fire, so moving a lot of manpower would be convenient and wouldn't attract the attention of any other nation. Hearing Danzo's words, Tsuki thought to herself, humph, so he has already thought this far. It seems that I can't let my guard down against him for even a single minute. Orochimaru had the same thought, but neither of them said anything for they understood that this rule applies to all 3 of them. As even Danzo hasn't completely let down his guard against Orochimaru and Hamusubi, and it doesn't even matter as this is only natural. In fact, whether Hamusubi or Orochimaru, they won't intentionally disrupt Danzo's ritual because even if they do their best and take care of everything, the probability of Danzo succeeding and surviving is very low, so there is actually no point in disrupting the ritual. Both Orochimaru and Hamusubi understand this. As such, they only want to collect as much data and information as possible for their own purposes. Regardless if Danzo is vigilant, let him be. It doesn't matter. Danzo didn't know Hamusubi's thoughts, and went on to say, in 2 weeks I'll be able to complete all the arrangements of the ritual ceremony. After that, I will perform the ritual. Hamusubi nodded. At this time, Orochimaru licked his lips and said, if you want to further increase the success rate of your survival, then I would recommend you to undergo body modification. That white arm that you showed me a few days ago should also be used to replace that current arm of yours. It will stabilize the Sharingan and Mokuton inside your body. However, Danzo was hesitant and said, I will think about it before. Then you better think about it and decide as quickly as possible, said Orochimaru and added after a pause. After the body modification, your body would need a period of rest to adjust to the changes, so the sooner the transformation is completed, the better and safer for you. Since Hamusubi also didn't want to let Danzo delay the ritual any more than he already has, she added, you'd better complete the ritual before Akatsuki organization makes their next move. Otherwise, the position of Konoha's Hokage would slip from under your butt and you will keep looking around. When the position of Hokage came into question, Danzo's nerves tightened. He immediately stood up, then turned around, and while walking towards the exit, he said, I will give you my answer within 2 days. After Shimura Danzo walked out, Hamusubi and Orochimaru also got up from their respective seats and left the meeting room. While walking side by side through the gloomy passages of the root base, both of them remained silent, and only the sound of their footsteps echoed in the quiet and empty passage. A while later, the 2 of them came out of the root base, then by using a secret passage that both of them were quite familiar with, they made their way towards the forest not far from Konoha. After confirming that no one was following them now, Orochimaru licked his lips, and while continuing to jump from one tree to another, he said, I now fully believe that Nidaime Hokage-sama had a very good eye for judging someone's character, and he made the right choice by not making Danzo Hokage Shimura. Danzo is really not suitable for that position. Ever since he has gained some political power and identity that is not even Hokage, he has started to lose himself. I won't comment on other matters, but it worries me that he has started to get out of our control too, while continuing to jump from one tree to another. Hamusubi turned her head towards Orochimaru and said, a dying person who won't live for very long, just spare him for a while. As long as we are careful, nothing will happen. Listening to Hamusubi's words, Orochimaru stared at her with interest and said, it's really surprising that you, who is not only an uchiha but also a member of the overbearing Amutsukami organization, can tolerate him to this extent. This further makes me believe that someone in your organization really wants to become a god. Tsuki did not deny Orochimaru's guess. This is not a secret. Is it your leader, Yama? He asked quickly, then for some reason paused and continued with a confused expression. But Yama already seems to have such great power. Isn't he already a god? Tsuki asked. What do you think? Orochimaru shook his head and said, it's a pity that I have no idea whether your leader has stepped in the domain of God or not. Then paused and continued again. In fact, I have always been curious. What exactly is your leader pursuing? Why did he create an organization such as Amutsukami, and how exactly did he manage to gather such shinobi under him? Tsuki denied answering this question and simply stated, you have too many questions. Orochimaru smiled lightly. and while licking his lips, he said, "My curiosity has always been very deep." Suki said, "I am sure you must have heard the idiom, 'Curiosity killed the cat.' Make sure to restrain your curiosity." Orochimaru chuckled and said, "But I am not a cat. I am a snake, so that idiom doesn't apply to me." Suki too chuckled. "I guess I can't deny that. So let me ask you, how are you able to tolerate Shimura Danzo to this extent? Being able to participate in this plan of creating a god is something I want to be part of. Hence I can do everything necessary for that. Tolerating just a Shimura Danzo is not a problem," he said, then looked towards Konoha village not far away with a melancholic expression, and said lightly, "Until a few months ago, I wanted to destroy Konoha, the cherished village of my sensei, right before his very eyes. And I was making various plans for that. But, when I witnessed Konoha being crushed by Tendo pain, I lost interest in doing that. Now, I have only two goals. First is to learn all the jutsu in the shinobi world, and the second is to gain eternal life so that I can fulfill my first goal. For these two goals of mine, I can do anything and everything." Suki nodded lightly. I see she neither denied Orochimaru's goal, nor did she accept it. She just remained silent and did not comment on it. Orochimaru too remained silent as they parted ways and went their individual ways. A few days later, the office of the principal of Ninja Academy Hyuga Kuroto, while controlling the Suijin clone disguised as Kuroto, was leisurely sitting on his comfy chair and sipping hot green tea, all while studying the scrolls of the secret ninjutsu of the Hozuki clan that he got from the ninjutsu archives of Kiriga. Sometimes his face would have a deep frown, other times it would have a look of understanding, then an exciting smile. These changes in his expression meant that he was making progress in what he was studying. Right now, all of Kuroto's plans are moving forward in an orderly manner and steady pace. Even if Shimura Danzo has ascended to the position of temporary Hokage agent and has started to get out of control, Kuroto is not that worried, because in doing so, Danzo has offended the entire Hokage faction that is led by Sarutobi Rusen. So Danzo is completely isolated at this time and there is no one trustworthy enough present around him who can monitor his actions and keep a check on them to make sure that Danzo doesn't make a mistake. Moreover, considering Danzo's character, it is nothing strange that he has chosen not to trust anyone, so all the preparations of the ritual ceremony are handled by him alone. Others can't get involved, and he won't even allow anyone whose life is not in his control to get involved either. Of course, because of the presence of Naomi on Danzo's side, Kuroto has all the real-time updates of Danzo's movements, so he is not worried that Danzo will do something that might affect Kuroto's plans in the future or catch him off guard. So he is not all that worried. As for Deidara, well, this kid is sort of trouble. The Kirigaku Rambu are searching for him. But this unpredictable kid is wandering all over Shinobi World with no purpose or goal. So tracking his movements has become sort of difficult, especially because he has very high maneuverability. Even if getting Deidaro's cell tissues is urgent for Kuroto for creating the next clone, he can only wait for the news from Kirigaku Anbu. As such, he has no choice but to remain patient, considering that he no longer has to be extremely busy with Anbu duties and secret missions. And he also doesn't have to worry about funds for the time being, so he is not doing any black market mission at this time either. Therefore, it can be said that Kuroto is quite free and relaxed these days. Kuroto decided to use this free time to do something productive, and as such he is now studying all sorts of water-style secret ninjutsu that he has managed to gather. His main objective is to master all the secret water-style ninjutsu of the Hozuki clan. Oh, and the reason Kuroto is studying the water-style ninjutsu is to balance the average strength of his Suijin clone with the other clones. The Fujin clone that has mastered 5 Keki Genkai is much more powerful compared to Kuroto's Suijin clone. Even the wind nature chakra of Fujin clone is extremely potent. As such, its strength is higher compared to the other two clones. This difference can cause a lot of problems for Kuroto during the final ritual. So he is left with no other choice but to work on the other two clones and balance all three of them. Among the two clones that he has to balance, he finds working on Suijin clone to be easier, and as such he chose this clone. This is not only because the affinity of Suijin clone with water chakra nature is extremely good, but also because Kuroto has developed some future plans for this clone. It is no secret that Suijin clone has already mastered the secret technique of hydration of the Hozuki clan. Having used it for quite a while, Kuroto feels that this jutsu has very high potential that has not been exploited up until now, and Kuroto believes that he can do it. Of course, what Kuroto has thought up is only valid for him, and not anyone else, because there is no one other than Suijin out there who has mastered both hydration technique of the Hozuki clan at the same time also possesses the ice release Keki Genkai of the Yuki clan. Only when someone has both of these abilities with them at the same time will they be able to create the effect that Kuroto has thought of. If Kuroto is able to successfully create that effect, the strength of Suijin clone will shoot up, and undoubtedly reach the upper domain of Super Cage class. Well, anyhow, his short-term goals are very clear and Kuroto is working on them. As he was busy studying the jutsu recorded in the scroll before him, suddenly, knock knock knock, the door of the principal's office was knocked on by someone. He put the secret scroll in his hand inside the drawer of his table, then said, "Please come in." Following Kuroto's call, Iruka and Mizuki together walked inside the principal's office. Kuroto looked at the two, and noticing the helpless expression of Iruka, he asked curiously, "What's the matter?" Iruka handed a report to Kuroto, then said, "Principal-san, this is already the 9th time today. Please blame me for my ineffective supervision and carelessness that has affected the normal teaching progress of the class." Kuroto raised an eye after hearing Iruka's words. He took the file from Iruka's hand, then read the report and said, "Uzumaki Naruto challenged Uchiha Sasuke 6 times in the middle of the class. Rock Lee challenged Uchiha Sasuke twice. Akimichi Choji also challenged Uchiha Sasuke, and even Sai also challenged Sasuke without a doubt. This is the result of Sasuke's declaration in front of everyone at the grand entrance ceremony. After the classes started, there were many students who wanted to defeat the arrogant kid. And as such, a lot of kids challenged Uchiha Sasuke. However, all of them were easily defeated by Sasuke. Among all the students, Naruto is the one who has challenged Sasuke the most. And each time he was defeated miserably without even being able to counterattack or defend. This continuous streak of loss made everyone clear that Naruto has not mastered Senjutsu. He was just bragging to draw attention to himself. Of course, the ones who know the truth knows. Kuroto didn't comment on it and allowed things to play out as they are. Back to the present. Seeing that Kuroto was looking at the report quite intently, Mizuki also added from the side, "Principal, Iruka isn't the only one who bears the responsibility for this. I too am." Kuroto raised his head and glanced at Mizuki with a smile.